Hi, Marco. I'm Vanessa, the nurse practitioner you'll be seeing today. How are you doing?
Okay.
Okay, before we start, I just want to let you know that anything we talk about here today will be kept confidential. And if any of the questions I ask you make you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to answer them. We'll just move on. So what brings you in?
Well, I just want to be sure I don't have anything.
So anything in particular make you think you might have something?
No, just to be on the safe side.
So no symptoms, no call from anyone saying she might have a sexually transmitted infection?
No, no, nothing like that. Um, but to be honest, I've been going out with my girlfriend Rosa for about 2 years, and God, I made a huge mistake. I went out to a party and I met a girl, and before I see my girlfriend again, I just want to know. I mean, I don't want to give her anything.
And when was that with the other girl?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay, Marco, let's go over your sexual history form in more detail. This will help me decide what tests we should do. I know these are some pretty personal questions, but it'll help give you the care you might need. Okay with you?
Yeah.
So, have you ever had a sexually transmitted infection in the past?
Well, I had crabs once, and sometimes I get itchy spots, on my penis.
Tell me more about that.
Well, a girl I was with a few years ago had crabs, but I didn't know it. I guess, I was a little bit careless and I was younger and I just sort of didn't think.
A few more questions. So, you've told me about some of the sex partners you've had. Have you ever had sex with a man?
No, just women.
And you've been with your girlfriend Rosa and just this one other girl in the past year?
Yeah, that's right.
Any concern that Rosa may have had sex with someone else in the past 12 months?
No, we're pretty close and she's really honest. I'm sure she wouldn't have slept with anyone else. As a matter of fact, after the party I asked her and she said no. But she didn't ask me though.
Well, it's good you came in to get checked, because some sexually transmitted infections don't have any symptoms. So let me ask you, what kinds of sex did you and the other girl from the party have? Vaginal sex, anal sex, oral sex?
Just oral sex.
And did she give you oral sex, or did you give her oral sex, or both?
She gave me oral.
With your girlfriend, what kinds of sex do you have? Vaginal sex, anal sex, oral sex?
No anal sex, but everything else though.
Do you use condoms with her at all?
No, we're just supposed to be with each other and she's on the pill. I really screwed up.
I know this is difficult, and it sounds like you know that condoms are good protection in the future in case anything like this happens again.
No, this is not going to happen again. In the past, I've always been so careful about who I was with.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I never slept around. I always wanted to get to know the person first, and I always asked if they had anything.
Well, keep in mind that a person may have a sexually transmitted infection or HIV without knowing it. So what do you think about using condoms in the future?
Well, I really don't want to, but I mean, I don't want to give anything to someone else or get anything. I really don't plan on screwing around like this again.
That's great. But please do remember that condoms really do offer great protection, and it's always good to have a few around just in case. But it's So we'll do a chlamydia test today because chlamydia is very common and most people don't have any symptoms. So you might not even know if you have it. And we'll do an HIV test. We're testing everyone for HIV unless you don't want to. Have you had an HIV test before?
Well, I gave blood in college once, and they're supposed to test you for that then, right? I don't know, I hadn't heard anything.
Yes, they do test the blood. And if you didn't hear anything, it's pretty safe to say you were negative then. But if that's your only HIV test, you wouldn't know if you've gotten it since then.
Oh, man, that would really freak me out if I had it this whole time and didn't know it.
Yeah, that would be hard. The other thing I want to talk to you about related to HIV is that the virus is also spread through sharing needles. What's been your experience using needles or drugs?
Sometimes I've used weed and cocaine, but no needles. A girl in college did, though.
Was that someone you had sex with?
Yeah, but I didn't know she was doing it until after we had sex, though.
How long ago was that? And were you using condoms with her?
That was about 4 years ago. We only did it a few times. Did we use condoms? Yeah, I think so.
So, Marco, you'll probably have to come back again to get tested for HIV. The test today won't tell us whether you've gotten HIV in the past.
This clinician had a very welcoming style, and she took things pretty slow. Men in general have had less experience interacting with healthcare providers around issues of sexual health, and can often feel quite uncomfortable and guarded. And this clinician spent a good amount of time really reassuring him and allowing him to proceed at his own pace. She also asked permission to do more sensitive questioning, which I think really contributed to him being able to disclose more information to her. Although the clinician did assess his sexual partners later in the interview, at the initiation of the interview, she assumed he was heterosexual, asking him in almost a joking way if he had received any phone calls from any woman telling him that he'd been exposed to an infection. Instead of asking if he had received a phone call from a woman, she just could have asked if he'd received any phone calls. This client obviously feels very uncomfortable with the fact that he had an outside partner, and the clinician was very reassuring and non-judgmental about that, validating that he did feel bad about it and encouraging him to take the steps he needed to take to protect himself and his partner.
I thought this clinician did a great job of not reacting and not being judgmental when the client disclosed his infidelity with his girlfriend. Because staff are so concerned about preventing the spread of STIs, we might be tempted in this situation to screen this gentleman even though he said that his partner does not have other partners. But I do think that we should take his word at face value and base our screening recommendations upon his response to the question. When the clinician asked this client, "What's your experience been with injection drugs?" this really opened the door for him to talk about any range of experience that he's had, as opposed to asking a closed-ended question where he could only give a yes or no response. It would be really important for this clinician to talk to this client about what he would do to reduce the risk of transmitting STIs or HIV to his girlfriend while he's waiting for his test results. In this case, screening for gonorrhea and chlamydia would definitely be indicated. Even though this client has been in a monogamous relationship for 2 years, he did have unprotected oral sex with a woman whose disease status he didn't know. And because gonorrhea and chlamydia can be transmitted orally, it would be important for him to be screened for these diseases as well.
HIV testing would not be indicated based on this last contact with an outside partner where he only had oral sex. However, it may be indicated due to possible exposures since the last time he was tested in college.